If you are looking for a way to measure your success in your business, I have the book for you guys. Now, my name is Marcus. This is Discover Ignite, where we discover possibilities and ignite change. And today I'm actually doing a book review for you guys on a book called Measure What Matters by John Doerr. Now, hold on, stick tight. Let's get this book review started. So you're looking for a way to actually measure your progress in your business, right? And you want to know how exactly to do that. Now, this book helps you with that, right? It uses this thing called an OKR, which is something that has actually been established in all these big name companies such as Amazon and Google and Microsoft. They use this process called the OKR, which is Object and Key Results, and essentially helps you measure, right? Measure your progress, allows you to actually establish goals, measurable goals, and allows you to actually help you measure someone's performance as well. And this book does a really good job of that, right? It really develops this foundation, right? So you can understand how to measure those things that matter, right? And that's how you make progress, is by measuring those things that matter. And this book really, again, dives into OKRs. If you wanted to know anything about OKRs, this book would be right down your alley. And it goes into a lot of the startups, right? The book essentially starts out like that. It starts in these companies like Google and Microsoft and how they establish an OKR, and it allowed them to propel them to the heights that they are today. And so for me, like for this book, I think it's not just for those bigger companies, right? Because when you start anywhere on any kind of company, you're going to have some kind of ground rules, right? You're going to have some kind of base foundation in which you can grow a business, right? Because going into any kind of business, you obviously want to, think bigger, not just think about small scale, and being able to scale that business eventually, right? And so if you can lay a good foundation and start something like using OKRs to help you establish and measure your progress along the way, you find that this would truly help you, further down the road when things get a lot harder to manage, right? And if you can have something like this, it truly helps. And a lot of the different techniques that they use in this book, I've actually implemented. Being a software engineer, you use a lot of the different techniques they talk about in these OKRs and measuring progress, right? And having these meetings to see where everybody's at and establish, some guidelines to allow yourself to continue to build, right? And continue to move forward and not be stagnant, because a lot of times it even, suggests in the book, if you don't have guidelines, a lot of times people will just sit on it. And it'll sit on someone's desk for a long period of time, right? And you're wondering where that particular paper might be. Maybe you're trying to make progress and you realize that you can't make progress because you're waiting on another piece of the puzzle. And sometimes that piece of the puzzle doesn't come quick enough. And so it gets delayed, right? And you end up pushing things further down the road than they should be. And so this book keeps everything on track, right? Now, as far as like any cons to the book, I must say that this book really hits on these OKRs, a lot right now. I've actually dealt with the specific aspects of OKRs through my career, right? And so it's interesting to see it in that perspective, right? In the overall scheme of things. But like, this book can be a bit much, right? Like, that's all they talk about through this whole book. And if you are, again, business minded, yes, it's good to know that, right? But I think the book could have been a little bit shorter. I don't think it needed to be as long as it was. It was pretty long. It gave a lot of examples, right? And yes, I do believe you need some examples, but it does start out with multiple different examples, and again, it breaks everything down into how to use it, which I think is useful, right? If you have never been in the environment, it would be a good book to pick up to understand how it all works, right? And so I think for someone who's never been around the OKRs or anything like that, it's good to have that, right? And understand how it's used and how you can be implemented to essentially measure those things that matter, right? Now, you're obviously going to be doing it on a smaller scale, mostly if you are, small business, but I think it's important, right? It's important to be able to establish those guidelines up front and measure it, right? Because everything that's measured actually is what helps you propel you. And so overall, the book itself, I would say it was pretty decent for the most part, right? Like I said, I've dealt with a lot of these different reports and stuff like they discuss in the book. So it's it's okay, right? It's really repetitive for me. So for this particular book, it wasn't one of those business books that you're like, man, I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. If you don't know what OKR is, then this book is, right for you, right? So that's essentially what I came away with the book, right? I got some good examples. I got some, some ways that it was implemented and why it works so well, why this structure does work. Nonetheless, if you guys want to pick up this book, I will actually leave it down in the description. And until next time, I will see you guys later.